Alright, BobalosRex here, and we just got a really big post that I'm gonna read through. I've already kind of read it, and I'm gonna read through and sum it up. But it's about the Raid Renown track, and we know how it's gonna go, what the pacing's gonna be, and I was calculating the dates, and we'll discuss it here. But let's read this. Hey folks, with the 11.1 PTR cycle going strong, we wanted to shed some light on a new feature that will be coming alongside the new raid, Liberation of Undermine. 11.1 will feature a new raid-only Renown track aimed at providing a host of power increasing over time, as well as some cosmetic rewards and improving the quality of life for raiders. This Renown is earned exclusively through completing the raid, and is a pretty big experiment on our end. So let's talk a bit about how we got here and why we're trying it and what it actually entails. And this is why this video is also going to include my opinions on this and what they should do, because they're asking for feedback. Raiders in the War Within will be at least somewhat familiar with the Narubar Finery, a currency collected from defeating bosses within Narubar Palace that can be turned into to gain a stack of warbound damage and healing increase. While we believed in our reasons to tackling this, namely to allow for players to more easily meet their seasonal goals as time went on, as well as providing some extra value to those who enjoy raiding long term, but may want to try it on a variety of characters, we knew the implementation relying on currencies and quests wouldn't be perfect. Yeah. In hindsight, it was a lot less perfect than we accounted for, with warbands being such a new feature. There were some pitfalls that led to bugs. Oh, I know the one they're talking about. And an overall confusion about how much finery one should have, how you are relative to intended seasonal progress, and so on. Okay. Despite this, we felt the reception to its inclusion was positive, and that it was adequately performing its purpose. Players gained power over time and learned to topple roadblocks that might have kept them stuck for long periods in previous season. And the cadence was quick enough that players felt motivated to continue clearing to see what progress played out. So when looking at how to iterate and improve based on feedback, we felt we needed something visible and already familiar to players that also understood as a warbound feature, and through that lens, Renown felt like the obvious next step as possible forever home for this type of feature. I think this is good overall. I can't show the Renown track right now. There's already videos talking about it, but the PTR servers are down, because a lot of this stuff is going to be coming in. But I'll do a video talking about that soon enough. But this one may cover it. Enter the Galagio Loyalty Rewards Club. And FYI, I like the Narubar Palace stuff. It worked out well. But the bug they're talking about is, so if you're playing catch up on a main, you don't get a lot when you're playing. So my main was behind 2 weeks, and I'd kill some bosses, not get that much. I go in on my alt, I'm getting like 18, 20 Narubar Finery, and I'm able to catch up just fine. So it is a little odd there, but that's the bug they're talking. So the Galagio Loyalty Rewards Club, this 20-step Renown track. So 20 steps, that's gonna matter in a second. Aims to combine the aforementioned scaling raid buff alongside some staple comforts like raid skips, and introduce some newer ones to see what works and what doesn't. In an ideal world, Raid Renown should achieve the following goals. Supplement the storytelling and setting of the raid to improve immersion and flavor. Easily communicate and telegraph what your efforts will yield over time. Improve the moment-to-moment experience of raiding, notably between encounters or during breaks. Be accessible and forgiving to players who miss weeks of raiding or start midway through the season. This is a criteria through which we'll consider 11.1's Raid Renown a success or failure. And feedback on everything from the above goals to how long the track should be, time to complete, and what's available through it will help shape what it looks like in future patches, or if it should be in future patches at all. They're asking for my feedback. Yo, Blizzard, I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give you my feedback right in this video here. Obtaining Renown and Cadence. So let's talk a bit about how players will obtain reputation and the proposed cadence in place to ensure a smooth progression over time. Like everything else covered in this post, things are subject to change, so feel free to ask questions or inquire if anything's unclear. As with the Severed Strands buff in Narubar Palace, this Renown is fully warbound and is difficulty agnostic. Good. It's a raid rep, You get it at any difficulty. I like that. It can be progress on any character, on any difficulty, and be applied to different runs at a later date. Raiding with my monk early on, mid-season patch makes me want to switch. Boom, I'm still getting rep. I like that. Players who enter the raid will begin with Renown 1 unlocked with a globally rising cap of 1 Renown per week, able to be earned from the raid. So, remember how I talked about this 20 step? They intend for this to last. And here, I'll read it. For example, this means week 1 of the raid's opening will allow players to get to Renown 2. Okay, so we're going to... Week 1, first week it's open, which we'll talk about dates in a second. We're getting Renown 2 that first week once we clear the raid, an amount that they're going to talk about in a second. So we clear the raid, get our first Renown level. That's it. That's the cap. So 2 the first week. 19 weeks later, we are done with this Renown. That's how long they want this to take. So, if this raid comes out the week after the patch, we think the patch is the 25th of February. The next week would be the 4th of March. Okay. I counted 19 weeks later, because remember we get 2. So 19 weeks later, it took me all the way to July 8th, I think it was. Maybe it was the 15th. I could do it again, but I'm not gonna. But it took me all the way to July. So we're not gonna be able to max out this rep until July. I don't know how I feel about that. The time takes a lot, but here's the thing. Listen. What time period is July? Hold up. Okay. If we get the patch February, and we get the 0.5 in April. Okay. 2 months after April, that's June. So in June, we get the 0.7. July, we hit that midpoint. We get that max Renown. And then September is when we could be getting 11.2. August. That does seem to line up with that. Think about that, though. So that means we'd be... Though, if you think about how Narubar fineries are ending up, I guess the last week is next week. That time's up just about right. But goodness gracious. When you see the final reward, you're going to be like, wait, we don't get Renown 20 to July 8th? That means I don't get this until July 8th? And it's like, yep. You got to get to July 8th, kill the last boss, and then you'll hit the final Renown, basically. That's how it's going to go down. But let's get to the rest. So, that's the date we're working with. Just about. A total of 5,000 reputation is present within the raid, twice as much as needed to get your 1 Renown level for the week, and it is obtained from killing bosses and named lieutenant enemies within the raid. We're trying this for a few reasons. Firstly is to be less prescriptive on where and how players should spend their time in the raid. Previously, players needed to fully clear Narubar Palace before they obtained enough currency to turn in for the week. This should allow for more flexibility and less time spent preparing. Your goal is to obtain a buff to be used in the same week's progress. I like that. I like that the idea is to get the buff, get the level early in a week, right? Like my guild was progressing Ansurek Heroic, right? If we want to get the buff for the week, we got to kill every boss on normal every week to get enough for the buff. Or do the thing with alts, right? Which you do the thing with alts, make it easy. But that kind of sucked. This way, they're giving you... It's imagine if every boss would drop double, but they're not doing it through just bosses. And when we get down to the total here, you're going to be... Basically, if you're doing normal, if you're progging heroic and you just want to get the rep for the week, you're going to just be able to kill Gallywix and get the renown for the week. But let's get to that part here. Firstly, is to be less. Okay, yeah. Secondly, we're hoping for this to be less punishing to groups and guilds that progress slower for various reasons. In Season 1, if your group couldn't fully clear the raid, you were only creating more work for yourselves in a future week. This should ensure that groups both skipping to later bosses or stuck partway through the raid can still see progress for engaging as best they can without necessitating homework between raid nights. That's what I was just talking about. I think it's good for that. Reputation is split as follows. Bosses 1 through 6 provide 400 rep each. Mugsy, Head of Security, Boss 7 provides 600, and Chrome King, Gallowix's final boss, provides 1,000. So, once he's open for LFR, you can just kill him, boop, 1,000 rep. 7 Lieutenant enemies throughout the raid present in trash packs provide the final 100 each, totaling 5,000. So if you get the 7 Lieutenants, that's 700, you kill one boss, boom, you're done. Because remember, you just need to get 1,000 a week. Or, hold up, not 1,000. You just need to get 2,500 a week. So you kill. That's my bad. So you need 2,500 a week. So you kill Gallywix, Mugsy, that's 1,600. You kill a couple of these guys. Actually, yeah, you kill the 7 lieutenants, Gallywix, and Mugsy, or you kill 2 bosses. Yeah, it's 2 bosses, Mugsy and Gallywix, and you're done. So that shouldn't be too bad. Ketchup specifics are TBD, but will function similarly to how Naruba Refinery did. This is to say that there will be a sliding scale where players further behind will gain more reputation on kills, ensuring that they should rapidly approach parity with the global norms, like in the span of a few weeks. So, they are going to be applying a rep buff if you're behind, which again, if you're behind a couple of weeks, like, well, they're going to talk here. For players interested in only the cosmetic rewards granted by this track, the Galagio Loyalty Rewards Club is intended to remain a functional track far into the future. Think the Shadowpan Assaults or the Hydraxian Waterlords. And so, can be earned even at an accelerated cadence by non-raiders in future patches and expansions. It is not necessary to complete this track within this season or any sort of time rip to obtain the mounts or toys combined with it. So, in a future patch, you're just going to be able to walk in to Liberation of Undermine raid, blast the bosses, get a ton of rep, and I don't know how quickly you'll get the rep in Midnight or Last Titan when you come back in here, but it should go by quickly, and that's kind of cool. Lastly, we'll be briefly going over the current placements and effects of the Renown track as is. In the interest of brevity, we'll be keeping these short, but adding commentary where applicable to try and get ahead of some common questions. Same as before, while this represents our current intentions, all values and functionality are TBD. For those unaware, the raid begins at the Intercontinental Hotel, and throughout this Renown will serve as a sort of hub for useful NPCs and vendors. So, right where the raid entrance is, everything else, there's a hotel. All these things are going to be right there. And remember, we're getting 1 a week. So we're going to get Renown 1 right off the bat. All profession tables, vendors, and crafting order specialists now exist in the Intercontinental Hotel for use. So you unlock the Renown, you get that. That's kind of nice. Then in that first week, we're going to get Renown 2, consume food 100% faster while inside Liberation of Undermine. So does that make you get the buff faster? And grants access to the Busted Rune Dispenser and object in the hotel, which has a chance to grant an augment rune. So in that first week, you're going to be able to roll the dice for your Busted Augment Rune. And I think you can do that on alts too. So once you get that unlocked, you run through that. Or maybe it's a account, once an account thing. So that'll all be in week 1. Now, we got a long way to go. And remember, we're not going to get there till July. That's the kicker for me. So week 2, Renown 3, transmog and item upgrade vendors become available inside the hotel. So, is that just a transmogger in the hotel? In the item upgrade vendors? Because you are going to be able to buy transmog, but we don't get stuff for that till later. That'll be in week 2. And then not till week 3, we get the first buff. So, gain access to the loyalty card, which functions as a Hearthstone for the Intercontinental Hotel. So that's cool. We get a little card that takes us to the hotel. There's a 30-minute cooldown. And... Okay, and then... So the way the raid's laid out, it's like this big open area, and you can port... I guess they're intending you to use this card to port back to the city as you're going between bosses. So that's kind of cool. And then this card, not only will it function as a Hearthstone to the hotel, but it gives you 3% damage and crit. So that will be on week 3. Okay, week 4, we get access to repair stations throughout the raid. They give you remove Sata debuff, much like the temporal attendance in M+. This is not intended to replace the value of engineering hammers, nor be placed sparsely in the outdoor areas of the raid. Interesting. So probably before like the last boss, the penultimate boss, they're just gonna give you repair stations and the Sata debuff vendor. That's just gonna save us time from having to reset bosses. You won't have to reset a boss, you'll just use this guy. Gain a 10% movement speed inside the raid while out of combat, and access to a self-resurrection while out of combat. So, tuning on the self-res is TBD, but we're presently targeting 30 minutes to an hour as a range for the cooldown, aimed at being an emergency recovery tool. 30 minutes to an hour, so one wipe every 30 minutes, we get a free res. It's alright. I'm gonna be real, I think this track goes on too long, especially if we're talking about July. So honestly, there's some of these that I think should just be whoop. This is one that I think should just go with Renown 7. Look, Renown 7, damage and healing buffs to 6%. Like, do we really need this by itself? I mean, it's 10% movement speed and the little res, but like, this should not just be by itself. Raid skip unlocked after okay, so this was week 4, week 5, week 6, we get damage and healing. Week 7, we get the raid skip. Week 7 for a raid skip. Some people would have the raid skip after week 4 or whatever. And now we're talking about week 7, okay? Raid skip unlocked. After defeating the first boss, an NPC will fly in with a rocket you can use to skip between bosses 7 and 8. Alright. As raid skips were previously via quests and also per difficulty, placing this on the Renown track is one of the many things we're trying out. Even if you aren't Renown 8, you can use this NPC to travel within the raid depending on bosses defeated. Similar to the flight path within Narubar Palace of their previous raids, Renown is only necessary to skip ahead early while those bosses are still alive. Alright. Okay, they do have a point. They do have a point. This is now week 7, but say we haven't progged all the way, us being able to skip is pretty legit. Say we haven't been getting through heroic as quickly as possible. On week 7, we can be like, fuck it, we're on the penultimate boss. Fuck it, we're on the one-armed bandit. That is interesting. But I like not having to get the difficulties. Okay, but remember, this is week 7. Okay, week 8. 2 vendors outside the Cauldron of Carnage. One of the raid's earlier bosses will sell you miniaturized battle pets based on Torque and Florendo. Okay, so week 8, you get pets. On week 8, we get 2 pets. Cool. On week 9, we get damage and healing. On week 10, more out-of-combat movement speed, and we get a dealer's chip for free cosmetic appearance. Alright, like Dragonflight Season 4 vendors, one of the available vendors will provide multiple colors of weapons from the Liberation of Undermine for purchase. Alright, let's say weapon looks. So that would be week 10. Week 11, a goblin inside the raid will provide you with hot sauce, a fire-breathing damage proc that scales in effectiveness based on your raid consumables. Profession consumables historically have an issue where they don't often scale throughout an expansion, so this is an attempt to value well-fed flask potion. Interesting. So they're giving you hot sauce breath. If you're fully potioned, well-fed flask and enchanted up, you're getting an extra boost. Now your raid leader has more of a reason to be like, yo, eat some food. You gotta get buff the hot sauce. Alright, in week 12, more damage and healing. Week 13, the augment rune is now fixed, and you get an augment rune. So on week 13, you get an augment rune. It could be more or explode, I guess. Week 14, a second cosmetic chip. And the 6th boss of the raid now has a small chance of dropping one as personal loot on future kills. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Week 15, damage and healing buff. Like, I definitely think they need to combine these. Like, this, it just feels so. Receiving on week 16, we get our first bullion. On week 16, receive a puzzling cartel chip, which can be traded for a weapon, trinket, or otherwise special item from the liberation of Undermine. Similar again to Dragonflight Season 4 bullions and Shadowlands Season 4 dinar, these are intended to have their own upgrade track, which means they'll scale to a maximum rate of 14 given enough press and valor stones. This can change before launch, but the intent is for these to be fully upgradable and usable by anyone that reaches this point and not locked or conditioned to certain difficulties. That's really cool. I love bullions. It being locked behind week 16 is kind of crazy. But our first bullion, week 16. Then, Renown 18. This would probably be after the 0.5 patch, too. Week 16 is going to be like just after the 0.5 patch, most likely. Maybe just before the 0.7 or with the 0.7. Then we got Renown 18, which would be week 17. Out of combat movement speed 30%. Auctioneer now becomes accessible within the hotel. If no one had a Brutosaur, this would be really good. Can you imagine week 17 finally having an auctioneer at the hotel? Because I've never seen anyone with a Brutosaur, but man, week 17. Week 18, we get our second and final puzzling cartel chip, and the damage and healing buff hits its maximum benefit. Look, they combined the damage and healing with something else. Blizzard, these don't need to be empty weeks. Like, come on. Like, what are we talking here? Then on week 19, we're talking about July. A purely cosmetic ring. Players obtain the title High Roller, a teleport to the raid's entrance, usable from anywhere. 19 weeks of this raid. Thank goodness I can finally get there. Oh, wait. I can already get there. I can already get there with this. Oh my goodness. Because the raid entrance is right there. Yo, Blizzard, thank you for the raid teleport to go on top of my raid teleport. With no cooldown, thank you. And at last access, here we go. Someone asked about this in the mount video, and I didn't see it there. And here's why. The Furious Florendo mount. The robot mechasaur found within the Cauldron of Carnage fight. You will finally be able to get it in July 2025. We'll stick around and do our best to clarify and answer questions where appropriate. Thanks so much for reading, and we're looking forward to your feedback and discussion on this topic seen Undermine. I'm going to give you my feedback right now. Why does this take 19 weeks? Why do I have to wait till July to get this? Why do some of these ranks literally just... This made me laugh when I realized that I can teleport to the raid again when I can already teleport to the raid. Because the Intercontinental Hotel is where the entrance, like, it's where the entrance is, where everything is. That's so funny to me. So, the DNR is locked behind week 16 and week 18. I'm glad I can finally get that trinket 19 weeks into the patch. Or 16 weeks in the patch, finally got that trinket. Thank goodness. I really think their timetable's bad here. I think they need to go down to a 15 Renown track, right? And just squish some of this. And then this should be good. The idea is good. Their idea of time gating is crazy right now. But yeah, thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.